Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Now That You Mention It podcast with Roll J and RJ.
I'm Roll.
I'm Jay.
And I'm Cancun Castaway RJ.
Guys, we just really want to say thank you. We feel bad. We missed the episode last week, but I think we all know the reason why. But before we get into all that, why don't you go ahead and check us out on our YouTube page. Click the bell so you can like and subscribe, get our new alerts when new content comes out. Go ahead and catch us on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcast. And hit up all our social media. You can go to our website at nowthatyoumentionit.org, and you'll get links to all of our social media out there. Or you can just go to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, and
Twitter.
And who? Twitter.
Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter. Don't forget Twitter. And guys, and now that we got a couple of weeks under our belt, there on our there on the nowthatyoumentionit.org website, you'll find a link to our merch site so that you can go look at our new merch out there. All of it will go to support starving Mexicans in the hood.
Oh my gosh.
Joking. No, guys, please give us some support. Check out the merch.
No, yeah, definitely. Very excited about that, and shout out to Jay for taking the lead on that.
Yeah, we got more stuff coming out. What we have there right now is just the beginning. We have some new stuff rolling in. I'm working on designs with a very talented designer, trying to get these things done. But go check out our merch now that you mention it.org and just click the merch button.
And unlike Ted Cruz, we're here for you.
Yeah. I know Jay didn't want me to say anything, but he's going to personally hand quilt Mexican Now That You Mention It blankets for those of you who want to purchase one.
You meant to put the big tiger on it, and then Now That You Mention It underneath it?
Exactly.
I want mine with the eagle.
You want yours with what?
The eagle.
I'm gonna make you a big old Mexican flag looking one, and just put Now That You Mention It right underneath it.
I want you to do one for me with the two halves of Texas, one Snowmageddon, and then one this week where it's
80 degrees.
80 degrees. The two varying temperatures of Texas.
Last week, your dad was trying to thaw out his swimming pool. Swimming in it.
Yeah, basically, man.
I was out there with a blowtorch just to keep the ice from forming on top, man.
So, guys, I guess top of mind. Let's go ahead and start with that, man. How did you guys fare?
From my backyard right here, see?
Yeah, there's a view from my backyard right there behind me. In a winter wonderland.
The view from your backyard has the Steelers versus Green Bay one from like 10 years ago on the Omni Hotel.
You're sure right.
Man, that's cool. That's green screen if I ever saw it.
Well, of course it's green screen, you nut. You know what? Nobody would have ever noticed if you hadn't said anything.
That's why I'm here for the people, unlike Ted Cruz.
Hey, you could always just edit it out.
Yeah. You could always make my backdrop Cancun and Ted Cruz and Heidi walking right behind me, waving at the camera.
Why you got to throw Heidi in there under the bus?
Sorry, homie. It's not like Ted went by himself.
You're right about that, but I guess. Or do y'all want to talk about that first, or you want to talk about?
Well, but it's all intertwined.
It's all intertwined. Yeah, of course.
Let me ask both of you. Obviously, we stayed in touch with each other to make sure everybody was fine because we're family. Yeah. But Jay, you probably, I got to be honest, I didn't really have to go anywhere because for what I do for a living, I can kind of do from here. There was a mild disruption in the internet sometimes, but for the most part, we were very fortunate. We had power and, we didn't lose water. And in fact, some of our family members did, and I offered them an opportunity to come here. Now that's if they could get here because of the roads. Yeah, but that's beside the point. I know that you were still kind of going back and forth up until like right in
Yeah.
the middle of it when you could.
So our offices closed down for in an unprecedented move for 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday,
Mhm.
before we got back to work on Thursday. But yeah, no, I mean, it was hell, man. It was hell. The house was cold. Unfortunately, we don't have a fireplace, so we were making do with blankets and trying. I was trying anything that I could do. I was looking at. I built this homemade furnace that I saw on TikTok and Facebook posts. It was a terracotta flower pot with some bricks and candles. And I got to tell you what, I put 3 candles underneath there, 3 small candles, and it heated the shit out of that terracotta pot, man.
But it didn't really heat your room.
No, it didn't. It didn't heat the whole room like they said it was going to do. It was like heat your whole room with, heat a whole room with this homemade furnace. It heated probably a 2 square foot area around it. But I went to go touch that terracotta pot, and that damn thing was hot, man. Like you could have cooked something on top of it hot.
Yeah, I was just about to say you should have thrown some fajitas on it.
Well, no, luckily, I have an outdoor grill that we bought, a camping grill that we bought the last time the wife and I went to the lake. So we were able to cook, at least when we were without power, we were able to cook on that, breakfast the next morning and heat water up for coffee and all that good stuff. But yeah, no, man, it was hell. It was weird because that first day I woke up and I remember thinking, man, it's cold in here. And I got up and I realized the power was out, no heat. So we just kind of stayed under blankets for a while and, had our dog with us and she was, snuggled in there with us. And, it got hairy because that first day, yeah, nice. That first day was rough because the power would go out for.
Like you said, your dog slept with you. It got hairy, and it was rough. I'm sorry. Keep going. Tell your story. I didn't mean to disrupt you.
Okay, we need to change your name to 2021 Dad Joke Champion.
Damn.
But the power would go out for extended periods of time. It was off. I think the longest it was off was 8 hours or so. And then it came on. It stayed on for an hour, hour and a half maybe, because when the power came back on, I was able to throw on a pot of chili real quick, and then we made a pot of chili as quick as possible. And right when we're getting to that point where I'm telling my wife, no, it's good. She's like, let's get it done. I'm like, no, it's going to take another 2 to 3 hours because I thought the power was going to stay back on.
Mm-hmm.
Right when it got to that point where it was boiling, and I was like, okay, let's turn down the simmer. It's going to simmer for another couple hours. Pew! There goes the power again.
What was that sound effect again when the power went out?
That was the sound of my power going out, my electricity bill going up, and ERCOT members dropping off at the same time.
Okay, I'm going to ask you for a favor.
Don't ever do it again.
So do that sound effect like 4 times in a row. You can ring my bell. You can ring my bell anytime.
I was gonna say it sounds like the from Star Wars when they shoot the guns.
So you can tell we're out of practice just after a week because you two are goobers.
You threw the sound effect out there.
Hold on. I got a question. In all seriousness, I got a question for you. So, how long out of the total, I guess, snowstorm would you say you were without power?
Yeah.
If you add everything up, probably about 24 hours here and there. 8 hours, then we'd go, the second day was like 4 or 5 hours at a time. It might have been more than that. It might be close to 30 hours without power. Not in a row, but when the power did come on, it would only be on for like an hour, hour and a half, and then shut off again. And, then would be out for another 2, 3, 4 hours.
The thing that stinks about that is you can't even really get warm, because even when your
Yeah.
power's on, your house is so cold that your heater really doesn't. It
Well,
really doesn't warm your house.
Well, the good thing is our heater works fairly efficiently, so we were able to get the house up to 72 degrees in the time that the power was on, and then it'd kick off, and that would sustain us for 3 or 4 hours before the temp started dropping again. But yeah, by the third day, it was the power would shut off. It would go off every by the end of the second day, it was like an hour and a half on, hour off, hour and a half on, hour off. And by the third day, we got to the point where we were being consistent, where power was on for 6 hours, 7 hours. I think it went out once or twice, but only for a short amount of time, like an hour, and then kicked back on again.
Mm-hmm.
So by that time, I think usage was dropping, and the rolling blackouts were getting a little bit more manageable, I would say.
Yeah.
Than the first day. And the good thing is we never lost water. And of course, everybody's big fear at that time, other than freezing to death, were burst pipes.
Yeah,
And none of our pipes burst. That we were very lucky in that aspect as well. We did all the things that we were supposed to do. Covered the spigots outside, kept the water running. For more than a drip. It was actually a small stream.
Sure.
Opened the cabinet bottoms to let the pipes in the bottom, have air to circulate and stuff like that. So yeah, it was it was hell, man. And even driving, getting to places. I mean, that first day when we went the longest periods without power was the hardest because we couldn't cook.
Yeah.
We're just trying to find places to eat, and of course, places are without power. So what we wound up doing, and I know this sounds as ghetto as it can be, but we wound up going to like QT and getting hot dogs because that was all there was.
Yeah.
Everything around us was closed. Even fast food places were closed. I think the first day we were lucky enough that we went to Whataburger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing.
And, we got some Whataburgers and coffee and stuff like that. And the second day, attempting Whataburger for whatever reason stayed open the entire time. But that second day, the line was ridiculous, man. You're talking about a 2 hour to 3 hour wait in the line at Whataburger because they're one of the only places open. And other people around are trying to get hot meals too.
Yeah.
So
it's unlike Ted Cruz, Whataburger is a real Texan.
Well,
that's what I have to say about that.
Chicago-based.
Before we get into the Ted Cruz adventure, I'll just share real quick. Even though we never lost power, we did try to do our fair share and cut down on the power demand. So while we lowered the temperature at the house so that the central heat wasn't constantly on, and then we basically closed ourselves into 1 or 2 rooms and used little space heaters to keep the room warm, and basically had the entire house dark. I mean, we almost turned on no lights, not even at night, no porch lights. Because normally in my house, I like to have the front porch light on, back porch light on. Well, I've got those on motion sensor.
Yeah.
And then I have one that's in my driveway. So if anybody comes on the side of my house, nobody's going to come in the back because of my dogs and because there's a big creek back there and all that stuff. But still, I usually like keeping that light on. But no, I mean, my house was almost completely dark except for, whatever room I was in. Now, my wife, because of the road conditions and her needing to work, we decided that she was going to stay at the hospital all week. So
yeah.
I took her to work on Monday or early afternoon, and she stayed at the hospital all week long. She basically slept in one of the rooms, and I didn't pick her up till Friday. So she was there all week. It was me and my daughter here at the house. On Sunday, we also went to Whataburger. I had placed an order online, but then the snowstorm hit.
Yeah.
and Whataburger wasn't doing curbside pickup. They closed down the lobby, so the only way you could get your food was you had to go through the drive-through lane. And that drive-through lane, when I got there, was already 14 cars, 14, 15 cars. So to pick up an order that I'd ordered online, I was at that Whataburger for almost an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah. And you know, I hope you didn't get mad at them, bro, because
No, I get it, bro. I mean,
there were a lot of people, but there were a lot of people in those kind of situations that are the same way. Oh, I ordered online. I should be able to jump to the front of the line and I have to wait in line to get without understanding that, hey, look, these are extenuating circumstances. This is not, you know, your regular run of the mill Friday night, we got busy thing. This is, we're the only place with power. So everybody and their mama is here kind of thing.
Right. No, I get that. I mean, at the end of the day, we were just happy to get the food. But I think the only really unfortunate thing is when you order online, and I don't know when the food was actually, order was actually prepared. But by the time you got home,
it was cold.
Everything was cold. The burger was a little soggy. So it's not the typical Whataburger standard that you used to. But we were happy. We got it. We heated it up. We ate. And like I said, we just kind of hunkered down, made a few phone calls during the week, got on the internet, answered emails. But for the most part, I didn't have to go anywhere. So it wasn't as eventful for me as it was for you and other members of our family. Just
what about you, RJ?
Yeah, so actually I'm gonna I didn't lose power or anything, same as my dad. I live by a hospital, so that could have played a factor in it. So keep that in mind when you start your house hunting again. You may want to look for a house on the same grid as a hospital.
Hospitals, police stations, and fire stations, man.
Yeah, exactly. But so to kind of go back on the timeline, this all really started the Thursday, I believe, before that, when the big crash in Fort Worth happened. And what was that? It was like 100-car pileup,
135 cars.
Yeah, 6 people died, I think.
Passed away,
Well, and you know what's funny about that is I actually worked with one of the people who passed away. Aaron Watson. He was a longtime GM, and he actually became a partner in 2 stores with Jason's Deli.
Oh wow!
And I had worked with him, way back when I worked, was managing at Jason's. Knew him, and so I touched base with a couple of people that I know that worked for Jason's, and everything was. I mean, he was a good guy. He really was. He was a family man. He was a Christian guy. Really, really good guy. A good mentor. But yeah, he was unfortunately one of the people who passed away in that.
Sorry to hear that.
Pileup.
Yeah, and there was national news, and I know there were some people, not even just that day, throughout this whole thing, really, who kind of poked fun at our state and, oh, look, they can't drive in the snow. But they also have to understand, we don't get ice like that. It's not like we have a ton of sand vehicles just standing by, or vehicles that have. While we love our trucks here, not everybody has a 4x4 truck, and even then, that wouldn't have saved you, because my understanding is that in that crash, you just came down the hill, and there was just no stopping. Hence why 135 vehicles.
Well, the thing. I'm sorry to cut you off, but the thing that surprised me is there was a lot of video available on Facebook of that crash.
Yeah.
And just looking at the video, just raw, without any editing or whatever, some of those vehicles that were slamming into the back of that thing looked like they were going full speed on the icy road. Man.
Oh,
They looked like they were going 55, 60 miles an hour.
Semi-truck,
and you would think that
one semi-truck that came that was that thing looked like it was hauling ass.
Oh, definitely.
And that's the thing is I understand that there wasn't time to react and they were on ice, but in my estimation, while I'm driving, I can see lights a quarter mile up the road, and especially when you see a lot of them, like if you're driving into traffic, you know that, hey man, I probably need to start slowing down here. Look at all those lights up there. But to me, it seemed like some of them may not have been paying attention. Were they on their phones? I don't know, man. But some of those cars that slammed into the back of that thing, we're not going 30, 35 miles an hour. Those things they looked like they were going 50, 60 miles an hour slamming into the back of that thing.
No kidding.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Say what you were going to say.
I know this might be a topic for another day, and I know we've talked about it before, distracted driving here in Texas. I mean, it really is becoming more of a pervasive problem that they're just, I think, they're cutting it too close, right? They're not leaving themselves any room for error. And especially in very poor driving conditions like that, man, you've just got to be so careful. And the problem is you've got that group that is still very kind of reckless / careless in those kind of conditions. But you also have the other group that's overly careful, overly cautious, that are just as likely to cause an accident, because the best thing in those kind of conditions is to travel at a moderate, steady speed.
Yeah.
Not going fast, but not going so slow that someone coming up behind you all of a sudden has to try and brake because you're going at a much, much slower speed than the flow of traffic.
Yeah. And, and RJ, you mentioned, the people with the big pickup trucks and things like that. Man, let me tell you what, it doesn't matter that you have 4x4 on those things. A pickup truck is off weight, man, because all the weight is in the front end of the truck. And when there's nothing in the bed, it throws the center of gravity of that thing off, man. And it doesn't matter that you have 4x4. You hit a patch of ice with half of your truck weighs twice as much as the other half of your truck, you're going to lose control. Take it from somebody who drove a pickup truck and who slid off a road. Luckily it was in the back roads of Lancaster into a ditch, but that was what happened. Was the back of the pickup truck couldn't compensate for the front of the pickup truck just because there's no weight back there. There's nothing, back there to put any weight on the tires to help with any traction.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man,
I made my other son. We had a bunch of sandbags here. I made him load them up in the back of the pickup truck because of that, for that very reason. He was trying to go to work, and he works for Amazon, and he was asking me, well, how do I get there? What's the best way to go? And I think you and I have talked about this, Jay. Dad taught us, fortunately for us, Dad taught us a lot of ways to kind of get around town.
Yeah. That
you can minimize the amount of overpasses you go through, yet still go on roads that are busy enough that the roads are warm enough that ice generally isn't a major issue. But that very same thing, I mean, when we had delivery vans and we knew bad weather conditions were coming up, we'd load up the night before just so you would have weight in the back of the vehicle.
Yeah.
And again, pickup trucks are the same, just as you said, same way. So I had him load up several sandbags all along the back part of right over the wheelbase. So I said, this will help give you a little bit of weight because, again, the most important thing is traction and constant speed.
Yeah. So, that's when it really kind of first started. So I went to I worked from home that Thursday, but then the next day I did go, to my parents to go do some work with my dad. I went and got groceries because I knew this was coming. Mm-hmm. We didn't know. I don't think anybody knew how bad it was going to be, but they, Pete Delkus, all those meteorologists were making it seem pretty serious. So I went and did my groceries because, better to have it. And I mean, I was going to need them anyways, but, better to have them early than, be stuck home and not have groceries. And then Saturday, I went and saw a couple friends, and got home, and then give me just a second.
All right. So Saturday, I went and saw a couple friends, and then got home before, everything hit. And then just woke up the next day, and it was just a winter wonderland.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. Luckily, like I said, we didn't lose power. We had groceries, but we conserved. We decided not to really cook if we didn't have to, unless heating up something in the microwave. Because I went and made multiple runs to like Walgreens. There's a Walgreens literally around the corner. So I just walked there, it just didn't make sense to drive. Although the first night I did drive because some businesses were open, and I ordered down night. I drove, but I just drove down the street, and at that I used my girlfriend's car, or fiance's car, soon to be wife's car, because same thing. I drive a pickup truck, and roads were already kind of iced over, and my truck was kind of at a slant in the parking field.
Oh yeah.
I just didn't want to take that chance. Whereas hers was at an even level, so I could just reverse out and went down the street. So, honestly, for me, it wasn't that bad. I've always kind of enjoyed the snow since a kid. I can remember, playing in the little very mini hills at the ranch, pretending like I was sledding. But
well, it was somebody, I have a video on my phone. Somebody was Texas sledding over here. They had some little kid on a I don't even know what it was. It's like a plastic trash can lid tied to the back of a SUV, and they were pulling that dude down the street, man.
Yeah.
But
that happened.
Go ahead, RJ.
I was gonna say that happened, I think, in a lot of Texas towns. Yeah. Like I saw it in Houston, and kind of kudos to Houston in a way, because the people of Houston will turn any natural disaster into fun somehow. Because when it floods over there, they'll be on their jet skis and well,
the fact that Houston has that many natural disasters should tell you they never lived there.
Damn.
But bro, do you remember the ice storm that happened I think it was 1980 maybe, when we were at grandma's house when all the power was out, and the house was so cold they were putting stuff in the back room, and in that room where Bertie used to stay.
One of the back bedrooms had a door that led to an outdoor porch.
Yeah.
On the side of her house. And I remember that because the power went out, they basically went and put all the food on that back porch, and that's what kept the food, from spoiling. In fact, that I will say this, I should say, the one thing that did occur during the storm was that our fridge gave out. Even though we had power, the fridge was not working. So we have an outdoor restroom at the back end of the house. So I basically made that room our essentially our refrigerator. Opened up the window. Yeah, I opened up the window. I turned on the ceiling fan on high, and basically took all the food into that outside restroom. And that was, it was cold. It was almost freezer cold in that room. So that's how we got through the storm. And on Saturday, had to go buy another fridge.
Yeah. So like I was saying, I didn't lose power, but we conserved energy. I know my fiance was, I don't want to say getting annoyed, but observed how I kept wanting to go out every couple hours and walk to Walgreens or something, because I had a little bit of cabin fever, and at the same time, I did want to play in the snow to some extent, because it snowed, quote unquote snowed, like a few weeks before that, very, very lightly, and I went to my parents and had a little snowball fight with my sister, but because of how the roads were with this one, I just stayed home. Didn't really need to go anywhere.
You know,
So,
you mentioned the cabin fever thing, RJ. When you're not used to being home all the time, you know, you work and you're usually gone from the house 8, 10 hours a day, and you know, usually like my wife and I, we're not homebodies. We're not. You know, there are certain days when you just kind of want to stay home and watch the ball game or whatever. But that, you know, most days are like, man, let's go do something. Let's go eat. Let's go. You know, we'll find something to do. That those kind of days where you're just stuck at home like that are hard. I mean, we found ourselves, especially when the power was out. You know, like jumping in the car and just driving around the neighborhood, just A, so we could heat up with the heater in the car,
yeah.
and B, just to get out of the house. You know, because being stuck at home for 2 days it sucks. You know, it's horrible. But yeah, I mean, it's
Well, you could have done what Ted Cruz did, and you could have gone down to Cancun.
man, that dude. You know, the Republican Party is already suffering enough as it is with what happened with Donald J. Trump there.
Mm-hmm.
That we didn't need another black eye. It seems like, you know, we're just now healing from this one black eye, and you know how after you get a black eye, it's all real dark and purple and puffy.
And you try not to go get another black guy.
And it seemed like the puffiness was just starting to go down, and the purple was going to a nice shade of red. You know, it still looked kind of bad, but it was going away. And then this dude walks in front of a bus and gets another black. I mean, he got two black eyes because this goof, while our state is suffering, while millions, it's not like hundreds of thousands, millions of people are without power and water.
Oh yeah.
This jackass decides to jump a plane and head to Cancun. And then after he gets called out for it, throws his daughter under the bus. Oh, well, I had to take my daughters to Cancun. No, dude, you didn't have to take anybody anywhere. Your ass should have been here in your state with your constituents trying to figure out a solution.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, what he did opened the door and the window for the Democratic Party to just swoop right into the state of Texas and just pull the rug out from under the Republicans, man, because AOC was down here while this dude is trying to sneak back in the country from Cancun without being noticed. You know, there's footage of her down in Houston helping out food banks and distributing water, and too little, too late. Ted decided to come serve barbecue in Fort Worth or wherever he was after the fact. You know, it just
Too little, too late. Is that
I like that one. That's a good one.
That's his new nickname, dude. Too little, too late, Ted.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there were quite a few people on social media who were, you know, well, what can he do? And I think all three of us can agree. I don't think we were asking him to somehow magically bring the lights back on, because there's nothing nobody really at that point. There's nothing anybody could have done about it. The fact that the damage was done.
Yeah.
But as I told my dad when, you know, that all first went down, like you said, Uncle Jay, he's got an obligation to the state. He took an oath to the people of this state. Mm-hmm. He can find resources. He can convince people to open, you know, whatever, NRG Stadium or whatever.
How many millions of dollars did she raise? AOC.
Yeah, like 6 million, I think.
Here. She's from New York. And you know, and the thing that drives me, you're right, RJ, he's one of two senators for our state. Man, you are at that upper echelon of the Republican Party in our state, you know, along with the governor, along with our representatives in the House of Representatives, but being a senator, being one of only two. And look, everybody knows and everybody's heard this, and it's cliche to say it, but perception is reality, right? And when the perception is this dude doesn't care enough about his own state to be there. I mean, look, dude, you didn't even have to do anything. You didn't have to fundraise. You didn't have to try to solve the energy crisis problem. You didn't try to have this. All you had to do was be there. That's it. And to hop on a plane and decide, okay, while the rest of my state is freezing, I'm going to go ahead and go to Cancun. You know, that's a bad look, man. It just is. And perception is reality, Ted Cruz. And right now, the perception is you don't give a shit about Texas. And now you've got 1 year, because I think that's when the next elections are, at least for the Senate race, if I'm not mistaken. You got 1 year to dig yourself out of a hole, buddy, because you're in one now. And that was a very, very deep hole you dug yourself.
Well, and not just the fact that millions froze, people died because, and I mean, it's nothing that he necessarily did. Like I said, the system overall, as a overall, failed, because what we were told through social media was ERCOT was going to have rolling blackouts for everybody, and yet some people never lost power. Now I get it. People who are on the hospital grid, the hospital can't go without power, especially during a pandemic where there's people on ventilators, things like that. But I mean, that first night, hell, the skyline was lit up, and I know how it works. I understand that
they canceled the Stars game 5 minutes into the game.
Yeah,
people are without power, and dude, and this is a bad look for Mark Cuban. It's a bad look for the city of Dallas. It's a bad look for the Stars. I mean, it's a bad look for everybody that, when you mentioned that, RJ, the skyline was lit up. But man, if anybody is going to take it in the shorts, it's going to be our leadership. Mark Cuban's going to get criticized, but for a lot of people, nobody gives a shit because he's a billionaire basketball owner. He has nothing to do with ERCOT and with the way our government runs in the state of Texas and blah, 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 blah. Now, we know for a fact there was nothing Ted Cruz could have done about what happened. He has no power whatsoever to govern how our state runs. He's a federal, he represents us in the federal government, right? Yeah. Not on the state level. But man, the perception of, hey man, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and bail to Cancun. It just looks horrible, man. I can't even,
Did you happen to see the meme that they,
I saw all of them, dude. I saw all of them.
You see the one where he's got the big old margarita glass, and he's waving. Looks like he's. Oh man, a lot of what you say is true, bro. Everything is about perception. I know there's spin, and there's a lot of people that are coming to Ted Cruz's
defense.
Defending him, and the truth of the matter is, he should have stayed here. I mean, he could have sent his wife and his daughters, let them know,
that's fine.
Say, hey, look, I have an obligation. I need to be working the phones. I need to be calling and seeing if people who are without power, if there are, warm zones that we can get them to. We can get them transportation.
Hey, Governor, what can I do on a federal level to help you guys out? What do I need to say to Joe Biden? What do we need to do to get this thing? What can we do? Anything like that, but to just,
well, I'm sure he thought, I can make a long distance call from Cancun. I'll call Joe from down there first. Let me get down there, and then I'll call up there.
Man. Man. Well,
I mean,
what's funny is after this was said and done, I think it was Sunday night or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
No, was it Saturday? It might have been Saturday.
Who knows at this point?
Yeah,
It was a nightmare of a week.
the wife and I went to a restaurant to go eat,
Mhm.
and of course I had my mask on, and I had a sweater and a jacket and scarf and everything, and I've got the scruff, and at that time I hadn't had a haircut, and I don't know how long. And I came walking out of the bathroom, and she starts laughing, and I go, "What are you laughing at?" She said, "You look like Ted Cruz."
Man, I hope she didn't say that loud enough because somebody might have thrown some food at you or something.
Luckily, there was nobody standing around. But yeah, I don't want to look like Ted Cruz at this point.
Well, I think the other thing too is obviously there needs to be a retooling of ERCOT.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the backlash has already started. I think four or five members of the board have already resigned.
Right.
Especially when the announcement came after the fact that our bills were going to go up after all of this. I mean,
Yeah.
you're talking about days without power and our bill's going to go up.
Mm-hmm.
How does that make
you hear
any
about
sense whatsoever?
I think I was listening to the ticket, I think Monday, and they had shared a story about a former veteran that basically had a bill for $17,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, because some of there's companies out there where you can purchase wholesale energy.
Mm-hmm.
And when everything is running right and your kilowatt hour is only costing you 2 cents a kilowatt hour, yeah, there's big savings, but you also run the risk of you're subject to that wholesale pricing at any moment. So if prices go up, and that's what happened to a lot these people that are getting stuck with these $17,000 bills. And there's another one. He was on Fox News the other day. I think his bill was in the neighborhood of about $22,000. Was because these guys jumped on the wholesale pricing when it happened, and yeah, when it's all golden and but when it works against you, man, it works against you. And it was working against them big time when they were $300 or $400 per kilowatt hour. And that's how these guys were winding up with $20,000 electric bills.
Well, yeah, because at the peak of it, I think I read that it was like at 9,000 a kilowatt hour, which I mean is absurd, and I've seen a couple electric companies talking about they're trying to figure out how to amortize this over 10 years. I'm not saying they necessarily have to, take a loss, but you think that's what people want to hear?
No, they
right
don't.
As they get their power back, and they're probably trying to fix busted pipes.
Yeah, especially those people that are on variable rate plans.
Oh yeah.
Like me, I'm smart enough to be on a fixed rate plan. I just signed a 2-year contract where my rates are fixed no matter what happens. So I'm good. My electric bill this month is going to be pretty much average for what it is. Now, should it be that high? No, I think it should be less because of the fact that we probably went about 30 hours without power. But hey, I'm willing to suck it up and say, okay, if my electric bills are usually around $225 and my next electric bill is around $250, I'm not going to cry about $25.
Yeah, of course.
It's those people that are on these variable rate plans that go up and down, but are maxed at, well, maybe on the low end they might be at 7 cents a kilowatt hour, but on the high end they're up to $1 per kilowatt hour or whatever it is. These guys are the ones that are going to wound up having $400 or $500 electric bills. And for a lot of people, especially like you said, RJ, during a pandemic, when there are still people who aren't working fully, that are still on unemployment, that are still on really tight fixed incomes, there's no way they can afford that. Yeah. And like you said, man, having to fix a busted pipe on top of that, man, no, you're right. Nobody wants to hear that.
Hey, can I borrow some of your podcast money to pay my electric bill? I'm on one of those.
He is not.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll take the 35 cents I have in the podcast bank account, and we'll split that 3 days.
I think the funniest, to make light of the situation, the funniest thing I saw about all this was, there was a tweet that said, telling my electric company next month when the bill comes due, I plan on doing a rolling payment.
Yeah, rolling payment.
But the other big thing was, the bursting of pipes. I mean, there were so many apartment complexes I saw on social media that just stairwells were flooding, floors were flooding. Wow. I mean, there was a car that I showed my dad completely iced over in a parking garage.
Oh yeah. I saw that. It was like a girl. She's walking through the parking garage, and there's no other cars around.
Yeah.
And the one parking space she chose to park in was right underneath a pipe that busted. And like
her car was basically a glacier,
encased in ice. It was crazy. That was the craziest picture I've ever seen. And just to see some of the photographs after the fact, long stalactite looking icicles and things that we're not used to seeing around here, man. It's just my wife has said on several occasions, hey, let's move up north, and I'm like, no, hell no, dude, there's no way I could survive.
But wait a minute,
this 6 months out of the year.
Same guy that says that you want to retire in Colorado?
Well, yeah, but here's the deal. I can retire in Colorado, go there during the summer when it's a nice, beautiful climate, and then come back to Dallas during the winter. Right? That's the great thing about retirement. You can do those kinds of things. Yeah. I'm not talking about hunkering down in a cabin for the rest of my life. I'm not Ted Kaczynski.
Oh my gosh.
I keep forgetting you got you got podcast money.
Podcast money.
I got, now that you mention it, podcast money, baby.
Well, so you could probably afford 2 houses. Some of us can't do that.
Man, with all this podcast money I have, I'm lucky I can afford 2 baseball cards.
Speaking of baseball cards, have you guys heard about the new phenomenon about these virtual baseball trading cards?
Top Shot?
Huh?
Are you talking about Top Shot, I think it's called?
I don't know what it's called. I just heard.
You purchase like iconic sports moments. Is that what you're talking about?
I don't know. I haven't really looked into it. I'm just saying I'd heard it mentioned that
okay, well, do a little bit of research on it, because I'm barely wrapping my head around virtual currency. Now you want me to get involved with virtual baseball cards? Yeah. Let me.
I know. Yeah.
Let me figure out Bitcoin first.
I'm pretty sure what you're talking about is like you purchase like at auction, kind of, I guess, because you're bidding against other people for like iconic sports moments. Like I don't know that any of Jordan shots are out there yet. I know very little about it too, but it's something along those lines. If it's the same thing that you're talking about, I don't understand it yet, but yeah, we should maybe talk about it next show. What was I gonna say about something about one last thing about the winter storms is, I mean, the thing we don't know is this gonna be something that happens more often in here, because people like to say that climate change means that, we're just getting warmer, but climate change also means that events like this are going to start happening.
Well, Donald Trump won the presidency, so hell might have frozen over, and that might be where we're at now.
Hey, if anybody thought 2021 was going to be that much greater of a year, they were so wrong.
The slogan for 2021 is 2020 2.0.
Is 2021, the slogan should be "Hold my beer."
Damn.
Yeah, no kidding. Because, I mean, 2 months in, and somehow it's already found a way to be, if not more than just as, what's the word, disastrous as 2020.
Yeah. So. Well, I don't know, man. These type of events tend to be once in a
they do
5 to 10 year cycle for the city of Dallas. I mean, we don't have a whole lot of snowstorms, and I think in the last, I honestly think the last big one was
2013.
The Super Bowl. Year when it. I iced over during the Super Bowl. I think that's the last really big one that we had that I can remember.
Yeah.
But this doesn't seem to be an everyday occurrence for.
That's the picture you got in the background.
That's what I just said.
That's what he said.
Hey, Danny, you want to pay attention to the show?
What's your name again?
Oh my God. RJ, take your dad over to whatever hospital your mom's, hawking her wares at and get him checked up, please.
Hey, I got my coronavirus shot, homeboy.
I don't care about the coronavirus shot. I'm worried about your Alzheimer's kicking in.
Well,
Whatever.
I think so before we call it a night, boys, I think one last thing we wanted to talk about was, of course, the news about Tiger Woods.
Man, did we do a number on that dude or what? I think we jinxed him.
I think it was more HBO jinxed him. We just did a review.
You jinxed him, Jay.
Yeah, because I think I remember Jay specifically saying he looks invincible now, or something to that effect. I can't remember.
I don't think so.
Did you guys see the any of the footage of the wreckage?
Yeah, dude.
Oh yeah,
it was bad.
It's bad. He's lucky to be alive.
Mm-hmm.
He is, and they talked about this on the ticket again today. What the prospects of him being able to come back from this?
Oh yeah, I heard that too.
I think he's done, man. I honestly, I don't think there's any way he can come back from this. I mean, if you're talking about from just understanding what the prognoses was, shattered
right ankle,
tibia, a shattered right ankle, and his back's already jacked as it is. So there's no telling what kind of damage was done to his back after this as well. I don't think that there's any way that. I mean, the guy's a world-class athlete. There's no doubt about that. But he's not a Superman. He's not superhuman. I don't foresee him being able to come back and play competitive golf at the PGA level. I think if he does come back, it's going to have to be at the senior level, maybe in 5 years. I mean, he's already, 41, 42?
I thought 45.
44. Well, if he's 45,
I'm pretty sure he's 45.
It's going to be a long road to recovery for that dude. If you're talking 5 years down the road, you're talking he's going to be 50 at that point. That dude's snake bitten right now. I mean, he led a charmed life for many, many, many years, and when he hit that wall, he hit it hard, man. The whole running into the fire escape by his house accident.
Yeah.
The whole getting arrested while driving under the influence of Vicodin and Zoloft and whatever drug cocktail he was taking. And I mean, I think at this point, Tiger Woods needs to understand he needs to hire a chauffeur. I think that's what his problem is, man. He can't do this anymore. Some people
it's
are not.
Funny. Well, it's not funny. They were saying that same thing on the ticket. Yeah, he probably should have a chauffeur. But I think I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to make a comeback, but I think you will see him try.
I don't think that there's any doubt that he'll try. I just don't see a way he can.
No, I'm with you. It's he's already had all 4 back surgeries. I don't even know at this point.
Yeah, I've lost count. I think he was up to 6.
Sir, and those kinds of surgeries aren't, one of those. It's not like you get better at recovering from it. If anything, it's the opposite. It takes you longer and longer each time because it's just not something natural. So it takes a lot.
What he does is he focuses first on just healing and being grateful that he is alive, being grateful that he's still around, that he can be a part of his children's lives.
And then it's probably going to at least I mean, who knows? At least probably be able to walk again. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he didn't lose any extremities or appendages.
Well, I mean, the guy's got a long road to recovery. I mean, and we still don't know the severity of his injuries right now. I mean, I think everything's being closely guarded. Um, I think we may never know the severity of his injuries, unless he openly comes out and says, "Hey, this is what happened." Um, I don't expect that anytime soon. So we may, I mean, we may just be, we may be talking out of our asses. The injuries may not be as bad as, they're being reported, or they may be worse. I mean, we don't know that it was just his legs. It might be, his waist, pelvic bone. Again, that any damage to his back, because he already had a damaged back.
Mm-hmm.
To re-injure that. I mean, the kind of torque that guy puts on his body just to play golf. I mean, you played golf before, bro. You know what it's like.
Oh yeah.
When you have a sore back.
I know.
There's no way. I mean, that's part of the reason why I stopped playing golf so long ago, was because I hurt my back, and I stopped playing, and it'd been a year, and I just never picked it back up, because I'm like, you know what? I don't know that my back can take it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a sub below average golfer.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. That's probably the bigger part of it. Is you really stunk at golf anyway. So
Well, I mean,
it's
hey,
not it's not like you were walking away from any kind of.
if I were any good at golf, I wouldn't have to be here worried about podcast money. But yeah, I mean, so I can only imagine the amount of torque he's putting on his back and his legs, to swing a golf club at a PGA level,
Right.
be able to drive a ball 330 yards or 350 yards or whatever they're averaging now.
Well, and remember too, his body's been subjected to it longer than even the average pro golfer, because he was playing golf since he could walk. And even though as a child, he wasn't putting that same level of torque. I mean, as he was coming into his adolescence, he was.
Yeah.
And so his body's been subjected to it for a relatively long time. And I think more importantly too, the other thing is that not only is he aging, I think from the documentary, we all agree, just the fact that there was such an immense amount of pressure on him, partially created by his father, partially be created by this image that he also created. Yeah. And then all these sponsors, and then eventually what he became for young golfers around the world, is that there was just this constant pressure. So it's not just the physical, it's the mental, it's the emotional wear and tear too. So, hopefully his primary focus for the next couple of years is just making sure that he's healthy enough to be a father first.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? Amen.
And then the rest of that, he'll figure it out, and if he's done, he's done. And I think that if there's even the slightest chance that he might be able to play for a little bit longer, he might try. It is what it is. But first and foremost, he just needs to be thankful he's alive.
Yeah. Yeah, because that was a bad scene, man. And I can't even imagine the shock it would have been to lose Kobe in 2020 and then Tiger in 2021.
I know.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, almost a year apart. Would have been devastating for the sports world.
Yeah. Well, hey, another topic for another day. We'll get back into I think his, we'll have updates on him as we go along. But I think there was I think we got to get back to reality now. Get back to life after Snowmageddon.
Back to podcasting.
There you go.
Apocalypse. The only thing strong enough to knock the Now That You Mention It podcast off the air.
Hey, and only to be fair, only because 1/3 of the show didn't have power. Otherwise, we probably might have attempted to do it.
Huh?
What? Yes.
What?
Oh,
What?
God. Well, it's good to be back and doing a show again, boys.
Yeah. Well, with that, we want to thank you again for giving us another hour of your time. You got a great break from us last week, but hopefully you all were safe and sound and didn't experience too much disruption in your lives. And if any of you need help paying that electric bill, please reach out to Jay from the Now That You Mention It podcast, because he's got that podcast money. And I know he's starting a fund to help viewers cover that electric bill. So
I believe I heard him offline say, "I got iPhone money."
Anyway, as always, we really appreciate your time. We really appreciate you listening to us be knuckleheads and have a little fun. And we want you to check us out. Don't forget to please hit the like and subscribe buttons so that you will be notified every time we drop another episode. Remember to visit our Facebook page, Reddit, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. And of course, you can hear us on the audio formats on iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Podbean, and Spotify. And if nothing else, go to our website at nowthatyoumentionit.org, where we'll have links to all of this. And as Jay mentioned, there may be links for our up and coming merch.
Yeah, there's a link already on there for our merch. Just click the link and it'll take you over to our merch site.
Yep. So don't forget to buy your Now That You Mention It podcast t-shirt so that Jay can take that money and then turn around and pay all these high dollar expensive bills. So for
what about Now That You Mention It, ski pants and things of that nature?
Well, that's our next year winter collection.
Oh, that's
next year's, yeah.
We're working on next year's winter collection.
We're coming into the spring collection, so give it some time. Hey, real quick, before maybe something that we can look forward to, have either of you have seen the miniseries, The Queen's Gambit?
Yes. Oh God,
yeah,
dude.
I've seen parts of it. I haven't.
You got to check it out because I think we should have a podcast about that. That series is 2 thumbs up from me. But anyway, so for on behalf of Roll, Jay, and RJ, we want to thank you all again, and we thank Jesse P because we couldn't do this without you. Until next time.
Good night, boys.